Welcome to The Truth in This Art, your source for conversations at the intersection of arts, culture, and community. I am your host, Rob Lee. And today, I am super excited to be in conversation with my next guest, a Baltimore-based Filipina musician and producer, as well as songwriter, known for her layered and transcendent sound that blends indie pop, jazz, R&B, and folk. Please welcome Jenna Balderson, also known as Eyas. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. So happy to be here.
Thank you for being here. And, usually, this would be the reverse. Generally, when someone comes on and they're wearing glasses, you're not wearing glasses, but when they're wearing glasses, I shout it out, I acknowledge it. But when someone is smiling as much as I do in the beginning of a podcast, I got to give them points. So shout out to you.
Yay. Yeah, I'm pretty smiley for the most part.
See, it's the right type of energy to start off a conversation with. So, and thank you again for coming on and making the time. And before we get into the deeper questions where, we're diving into the artist mindset and the lifestyle, I want to invite you to introduce yourself and tell us a bit of where your journey with music began.
Yeah, sure. So, like you said, my project's called Eyas. I'm a Baltimore-based musician, singer, songwriter, producer. My journey with music. Apparently, I've been singing for a really long time, since before I could even form sentences, according to my family. And so that was encouraged from a really young age. They got me in vocal and piano lessons from a really young age. And then I started doing a bunch of musical theater. But in terms of self-expression, I felt like that was pretty rigid because, you have to play a certain role and you have to follow the script. And it was just rigid because I couldn't do what I wanted to do or express myself in other ways. So I started songwriting, started playing the guitar and songwriting, and that was my first the first instrument besides the piano, but I really took to the guitar when I was in middle school and early high school. And then later in high school, I started producing. There was this kid that I had a crush on, and he was really good at producing, and so I wanted to impress him. But then it just turned into a genuine love for production. And now I'm here. I've just been doing that since then.
No, that's great. We've all had those moments where we have a crush and we're like, all right, I'm going to use music to impress them. And I've mentioned it on this podcast before. There was a girl back in the day at City College High School. That's where I went. And this is so nerdy, but I did a rap song as, I believe, Macbeth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was very much like DJ Clue ad libs. I'm dating myself, but all of that stuff is in there. And I recorded it on a dubbing machine and brought it to class one day in this advanced English class and made an ass out of myself. But she thought it was cool, which is a win for me. And she was like, fine, Berta Mac.
It's giving Hamilton, honestly, but it's Macbeth instead.
Yes. And that was when I thought I was going to be a rapper very briefly. And it didn't pan out. It wasn't a long-term solution.
Oh, well, you can always do it if you want.
40-year-old rapper won't work. But so one of the other things I'm curious about when we talk about some of those earlier things as we've gone backwards, right? You said singing, or music, piano, instrumentals, instrumentation early. Is there a musician? Is there a piece of art, maybe not even music related, that sticks out maybe from your youth that you look back at now as to be maybe something that you aspire to be, maybe something that you really enjoy that kind of helps set you on your path? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Well, Barney's what got me into singing, so maybe him, but
go on.
That's mostly just a joke.
Please continue. I love you. You love me.
But more seriously, in high school, I would say my biggest influences were Fleet Foxes. I really liked Robin Pecknold's voice and songwriting, and just the way that that music sounded and the way it was produced. And just a lot of indie folk in general was pretty influential for me. And you can definitely hear that in my music today, but it's not just in that vein. There's a lot of other influences as like my tastes and the people that I listen to expanded. But early influences would be like Fleet Foxes and Bibio and Björk. I really looked up to her a lot too. Just fearless self-expression, and always staying authentic and true to the art and the person that she wanted to be. And that's, inspiring to me in a lot of ways.
Authenticity is the name of the game. So, I'm here with you. So in since we're talking a bit about those influences, and I touched on it in the introduction, but if you will, could you describe your sound for folks who are untapped, unfamiliar? Could you describe your sound? Because I see indie pop, I see jazz. You referenced a few influences there, R&B, folk, obviously. So talk a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, that's always such a hard question for me to answer, but I would say that it's pretty genre blending and multi-genre influence just because I listen to a lot of different stuff and I have over the years. And I think the music I make is just a natural consequence of that. And yeah, it's all over the place. The lyrics are really sad. That's probably something that connects all of it, because I use music as a way to kind of explore those feelings within myself, and a lot of the times I use it as a coping thing, I guess, a coping mechanism for those harder and more uncomfortable feelings. So that is one of the things that ties it all together. Uh, yeah, there's a lot of jazz, there's a lot of indie pop, there's a lot of folk influence in it. It's just a collage of all of those things, I would say. It's a sonic equivalent of some kind of collage.
I like that. See that might be the title, the sonic equivalent of a collage.
Oh, and wait until you see the EP album cover too, because I think it'll make sense.
Well, with that, a natural progression, as one might say, let's talk about the EP a bit. Give us the details, like what's the name, release, things of that nature. Let's start off right there. Tell us about the EP.
Yeah, so the EP is called Quiet Loud, quiet hyphen loud. That's a word that I made up. uh, it comes out November 22nd, and it is produced by Barty Strange, who is another now based in Baltimore artist, who I was very fortunate and feel very honored to have worked with. There's a lot of co-production from me as well. He took a lot of the demos that I had produced myself and just gave them new life and really polished everything. And yeah, it comes out November 22nd. I'm really stoked.
So, as we were talking a bit about some of the maybe touching on a bit there, some of the themes and some of the feelings that kind of go into the work or have you, could you touch a bit on sort of like what can one expect? Because I was able to do it, have an advanced listen, spoilers out here, and I really I was craving for more, and that's a good thing for me. That's a good thing. So flowing between sort of, high energy and these more introspective moments, could you share some of the inspiration behind like the overall feel, of the EP and even like the lead single, Faded, which really sets the tone. I'm like, all right, I do that thing where I keep playing the same track. I was like, I got to get through the whole joint. No, let's go back to Faded, play it.
Yeah. Um, Gosh, okay, that was a lot.
No, no, no. Sorry. Yeah, I can reset. So if you will, like with the sort of, sort of the high energy, sort of like the high energy involved in it, and sort of the introspective moments within songwriting and the subject matter. Could you speak on sort of the overall feel of the EP? I'll stop right there and then go into the second part.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's a bit of a roller coaster for sure, because it does oscillate a lot between these louder, more intense, distorted sounds and then very quiet, soft, those more introspective moments, like you were saying. And I think there's something for everybody on it. I mean, there's like a house song, there's like some break beats in there, there's the indie folk stuff, like very Fleet Foxes-esque layered choral vocals. Just there's a song with just a Rhodes and my voice. And yeah, I think I'm not sure if you'll quite know exactly what to expect the whole way through. So it is a bit of a roller coaster.
Roller coaster is definitely, because I think I listened. Obviously, I listened to Faded multiple times, but I listened to like the full EP all the way through maybe twice. And I'm sitting there like, all right, taking some notes down. I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do the ghost thing. And then I just ended up playing Faded again, obviously. So talk about how like setting the tone with the EP and using Faded to set the tone, and especially with sort of the themes and like starting off that roller coaster as you described.
The first sound that you'll hear is it almost sounds like a cinematic impact kind of sound, I guess. It zooms you right into situation. And then you'll hear my voice. I'm talking about this situation in which I was with somebody when they were expecting a lot from me, and it was very intense. And me having to kind of deal with those more obsessive tendencies from the other person, and feeling this pressure to live up to those expectations, and feeling very strangled by it in a way. And then it gets into this breakbeat. So I don't know how else to describe it.
No, 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 no. Like it's definitely, and that's probably why I was like, let me go back, and I'm like, why am I thinking about these relationships? Rob, you need you to be this. I'm not that. That's not me. So, so with that, like, describe some of those feelings that maybe it's catharsis, maybe it's sort of like in unburdening is not necessarily the word, but I think catharsis is a little closer, of when you're writing something that's vulnerable, when you're writing something that definitely is like, ooh, this is real. And then sort of maybe performing, maybe going through the process of maybe editing and figuring out like what stays in, what comes out, what's a little too close as far as, real life.
Mhm. I know that it's a good song when I'm crying, when I write it. Because I know that I've hit something within myself and I've explained it to myself. Because a lot of this is, like I said, me kind of exploring these feelings within myself. So if I'm like getting myself a little worked up through the writing process, then I know that it's striking some kind of chord. And I think that's a good navigator for how it might land for other people as well. I'm like, ooh, that hit for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I had to give you the side face. He's like striking a chord. I was like, is that a musician pun right there? My face changed because I'm a pun guy. So I'm like, oh, okay.
I didn't mean it to be, but we'll say that I did.
Oh, it was intentional. Everything is intentional here. Yeah, thank you for that. Because I think when we're making something, where we're doing a creative expression, and whether it's like, this is my creative expression, I suppose, and what I'm aiming for, and I always love getting feedback from the guests before we get on. It's like, man, you really made me think. I got to think about what I'm talking about. I can't just BS it. that's sort of what I'm going for. Something that's deep, something that gets into the person, really make them go deeper into maybe the reasoning and the thinking behind it. And part of my message is to go deep, to really think about it. And it ties to the city, who's making interesting stuff in the city and what goes into the output that's in the city. Outside of sort of like what's there as far as having, sort of this catharsis as I was touching on, or certain themes that you want to cover in the music, is there an overall message through the EP as a full body of work that when someone's listening to it, try and get people to cry too? What are you aiming for?
Half of it is exploring the feelings within myself and turning those more painful moments into something beautiful in a way. And then the other half is definitely sharing that with other people in hopes that maybe they can recognize something in their self in that. And because a lot of these feelings are like you might not feel like anybody has ever felt that way before. And it's really nice to know that maybe somebody has, and it, I think, can quell a lot of that loneliness. And then through music, I think you're also creating a culture when it comes to like how many people are listening to it and what they all resonate with. And if there are multiple people that are resonating with the song or things in it, then it's creating a community of people that feel seen within each other. And that's, I think, my ultimate goal for sure.
I love that. Making community. I like that. I like it. So we touched on some of the influences. Now, I like to go deeper than like purely like that surface thing. Like, we think about sound or what have you, and that's great, and that's obviously there. You can point at certain things, but maybe outside of sound, beyond sound, who or what are some of the other maybe influences or inspirations that are there? For instance, let's say there might be the way that this person conducted themselves in interviews, or the way that this person like managed their business side of things, or even performed. Is there, folks that you look at like, yeah, you're good at this, or even, something that's just like kind of out of the blue that you're getting inspiration from?
Yeah, I really, really like this artist right now called, her name's Saya Gray. Maybe it's Saya, Saya.
Okay.
She's a Canadian Japanese artist. And I think she's getting a lot bigger in the more like jazz, indie, experimental realm. But she's just awesome. I love her music. She produces, I think, all of it herself, which is, I love seeing other femme or women producers out there. It's very inspiring. Um, and her live stuff is just incredible. I haven't seen her live in person, but I've seen a lot of the videos that she does, and she's just a shredder. Like she's just awesome. Um, and in similar to Bjork, she like her main thing is just being as authentic to herself as possible and not selling out to label influences or the powers that be in the music industry. Just keeping true to herself. Yeah, but she's a badass and I think she's awesome. And her music is awesome and incredible. So she's a big influence and inspiration to me right now.
I like I like degree of difficulty. I try to make things harder for myself. I guess that's what I'm getting at. And but I think when I look at different people who, and I use creative in that it's not just one particular lane, like they're kind of bifurcated, I suppose, where like I really like Donald Glover because he's in multiple areas. I really like Tori Watt because he's in multiple areas or what have you. And
Tori Watt. Yeah.
we on the same thing.
He's a big influence too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. See, I pulled something out that wasn't there. That's great. And I look at that. I look at people who are doing multiple things, like even outside of maybe it's media related, but even outside of like podcasting, because we get held into this very sort of narrow view. You do this, so this is the only influences you're quote unquote allowed to have. But I think being able to look more broadly at who is an influence, like I'm influenced by Issa Rae, like you're doing a lot of different stuff and it's great. And being able to keep it all together while while it appears that all of these folks that I'm mentioning, they're keeping themselves in it, that they keep in, like you were touching on, not getting caught into like the business side, that you're losing a bit of yourself, and being being in ourselves, being vulnerable, being authentic, that's a commodity right now, especially when it comes to sort of the social media thing and how, online, and how we're being discovered through algorithms. So I just like what I'm hearing from you of being authentic and being influenced by folks that are authentic. That's a through line that I'm hearing.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a big thing that I want to keep doing or try to do. Yeah.
So going back to the genre blending, this, what did you describe it earlier as? Because I want to keep that theme rolling. The
The
collage.
sonic the sonic equivalent of a collage. Yeah.
So talk about how that works into your creative process, whether it be writing, whether it be producing, the sort of like ideation of it all. How does the notion of genre blending like play in there? Like, you know, there, I would imagine different styles of music. I'm not a musician. Like I try to rap, as I said, they require different things in the sort of ideation process. So talk about sort of, having interests and exploring various genres and how that plays a role into your creative process.
Oh, this might be hard for me to verbalize, but I feel like, yeah, each genre brings something different, and something interesting. Like, for example, if I'm bringing more jazzier elements into a song, I want the chord structure to be more interesting than, like, say, like a pop chord structure would be. Just to give the listener something extra there. Um, and then if I want something to have a little more energy or I want it to sound cool, like I'll throw some kind of like hip hop beat onto it or a break beat or something. Um, so I don't really know how it all comes together. It's kind of hard to say. Um, yeah, and I really only and also songs evolve. Like I never go into a song knowing exactly how it's going to sound when it comes out. It just kind of takes it takes a life of its own as it's being developed and kind of tells me like where it wants to go or what feels right.
Because I hear it on occasion when the people that you like. There's very few people that I like and enjoy their stuff. It's just like I just listen to and enjoy the stuff that I enjoy over and over again, right? And I find like when I remember this quote from a rapper, Currency. He was talking about different musicians he's listening to at a time when he's working on his stuff, and he made a point that I don't listen to anything current because I'm trying to create this sound that might be from this era. So I'm only listening to stuff from that era, this the sort of osmosis thing. And I find when I'm really into the writing process of coming up with questions and just trying to get into the head of folks, I will put that audiobook back on that I get a lot of, insight from, back to Still Like an Artist, back to Show Your Work, back to Death of the Artist, just to get a certain vibe. But I found that when maybe I would insert maybe a different, book in there that I'm just getting a lot of juice from and just is helping the mindset, it might be more business oriented, getting into the sort of the business behind art. I find that the questions are more in that vein, and the way that I'm talking about things are more in that vein. And I see that sort of delineations and that difference that's there. So does that come to mind at all? Does that play a role in there at all? Like, are you listening to when you're looking for that more of that hip hop feel or that more jazzy feel? Is there like, I'm gonna listen to jazz today because I'm working on these tracks?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like while I'm working on a song, if I do have an idea of some different elements that I want to add to it, I'm gonna definitely be listening to some references that I think sound like that. Or I might hear something just in general with like the music I'm listening to at the time and be like, ooh, I want to take that thing and put it in here or something similar because I like how that feels or how that sounds. So it's just I guess taking all of or using all of these different sources and inspirations as like a palette and just picking and choosing different things from each one that I like and putting it all together.
Yeah, that's tight. It's almost like, you know, how people make their, especially when you watch like shows that have an accompanying podcast or a playlist or something. It's like, here's the playlist behind the EP. Here's, you know, here's the some of those references there. Here's the accompaniment.
Yeah,
Um, but it's like, listen to the real thing, obviously. Like, listen to my work, but also, you know, here you'll see maybe some of those through lines, what have you.
the reference playlists. Yeah, I really like listening to those when artists do post them on Spotify or something. Like
Wow.
there's this artist I was really into called Ghost Orchard, and they released an album called Rainbow Music, and they had a playlist of all of the inspirations for rainbow music, and I really like that playlist.
That's great.
It's probably still on Spotify, so yeah.
Because I know how much like people and again I fight with sort of social media all the time, but I know how much, especially with like artists, because like, you know, things have become deprecated. Like when we talk about Spotify, we talk about Instagram. It's like sometimes I feel like Spotify hates musicians. Sometimes I feel like Instagram hates people who have really good images.
Yeah.
And it's almost this other thing you have to do, which I think makes it interesting, of maybe showing some of the work that goes into it, the BTS sort of stuff, the behind the scenes, and sort of this is the making of it to give sort of that extra layer of insight. So there may be something there, I don't know, but it's something that I like because when someone has good music taste, as an Aquarius, and someone has good music taste, I'm like, we got to be friends. Let's trade notes.
Yeah. Okay. This is cool too.
So I got two more real questions I want to ask you before I go into those great rapid fire questions that you probably forgot about because I've been luring you into a false sense of. So
Yeah.
you've worked with artists like, you know, previous guest and soon to be coming back on Micah E. and JPEG Mafia, who are big in the Baltimore music scene, obviously, and even outside of the Baltimore music scene. Could you share like your experience collaborating with them or anyone else that comes to mind that's been a big part of like your development as an artist and just like an experience that really stands out to you?
Yeah, sure. I'll start with Micah. Micah and I, gosh, when did we meet? It's been almost 10 years. Um, but we started off as coworkers, and then we became musical collaborators because we were both making our own music and everything. Um, and all throughout the years, I've just always admired he's so prolific. Like he's able to make things and so much content so fast. And I've always struggled with that because it takes me forever to make any. So, recently he's been just helping me be more productive and kind of get some things out because like he believes in me and wants the world to hear it, and it can't take several years to do that. I mean, it can that can work for some people, but like I need to get it out. So, and then he's also helped me so much with connecting to other people in the music scene, because he knows everybody and he's just so charismatic and popular. One of those people is JPEG Mafia, and we met when I was like 19 or 20. And at that time, I'd only been producing for, I don't know, like 2 or 3 years, something like that. And he was listening. I showed him some of my early productions, and he saw a lot of potential in me. And that was very validating because I looked up to him, and because I mean, he's a crazy producer and a crazy artist. He's always been like that. Also super prolific too. Um, and like we were working on things, I guess, before he blew up, so to speak. But then after that, he continued to support me and continued to believe in me. And just having that validation and that support and encouragement from somebody that I really looked up to musically, was so paramount for me and just keeping going, for me to keep going and believe in the stuff that I was making. Um, yeah, I mean, he's a genius. I can't say anything else.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. Thank you for that. So here's the last question, the last real question. And I'm very curious about this because I have my take in this area, but I definitely want to hear what you have to say because you have folks who maybe tinker. You have folks who have that sort of, ooh, getting closer and closer. The minutes are ticking away until, for you, your debut EP. That's what this is. This is a debut.
Mhm.
Quiet Loud is approaching. That release is approaching. It's going to be shared with the world. I mean, not everyone's exclusive like me that already listens. But as we wrap things up, could you describe sort of the feelings and sort of, I don't know if you're a person that wants to go back in and tinker. It's like, maybe I should put this in there. I was listening to this. Maybe I'm going to change this track a little bit because I know some musicians like painters. I'm not quite done yet. I want to touch it again. I want to change something in here. Talk about what's going through your mind as you prepare for the release.
Yeah. Well, I can't, at this point, I can't change anything.
You're done. Nothing else.
It's coming out and it's gonna be the way that it is. In terms of changing some things, I guess maybe there are some like small production things that I would have changed. It's different when you produce everything yourself, and it's another thing when you work with another producer because a lot of those things, it's like their baby as well, I
Sure.
guess. So it is more of a collaborative process. So anything that I would change, I'd have to consult with the other person that worked on it. But no, I mean, I'm really proud of the way that everything turned out. And I mean, these songs have been in the making for such a long time. Like the oldest song, or the song that I wrote first for this EP, I wrote when I was like 20 years old. So that was a long time ago. I won't say how long, but it was.
That was 1 year ago. What do you mean?
It was a long time ago. So yeah. It's just I'm just really happy that it's finally all coming together and coming out. And that I get to share these things with people. So in terms of things I would change, I mean, maybe some mixed things, but yeah, that's probably it.
I'm hearing there's excitement though. I'm ready for it to be out there, and I feel that same way. There's this sort of I always have two things that are going when I work on because I usually record in batch and I treat it like a production cycle. I'm like I'm gonna do this interview. It might come out let's say a month later. And I still remember it. I still like, do I want to redo that interview? Did I screw that question up? Should I? And but when it comes out, and one, I'm always like, did the guests like the way that they came across? Did I like the way that the interview went? Like, I'm usually feeling that throughout the conversation. And when that release is out there, because people come to me, I guess it's sort of that real life person thing of, hey man, Rob, good one. Or, should have did a little bit more there.
People tell you that? Or
Oh yeah.
oh,
But more often than not, it's always really well wishes and appreciation and really kind words. But it is sort of like that you're putting a creative expression out there in the universe. And when I've been podcasting for 15 years, so and doing this particular one for five, that's a newer sort of experience. Beforehand, it was just like I did it and it's out there. I don't care if anyone listens. Now I'm kind of like this is a collaborative thing. We're sitting here, you're sharing your story that goes into the making of your EP with me. So I want to do, justice in helping you get your story out there. I'm helping to facilitate you sharing your story. So right there is already a collaborative thing. Like if you come back, take this question out, take that question out, I'm like, yes, ma'am, every time. But it's definitely this anticipation and this sort of feeling when I talk up interviews with folks. I'm like, guess who I have coming on? I brag it out. I talk about it a little bit, and it's definitely that feeling of release, that anticipation.
yeah, it's relieving in a way to get it out there.
Oh yeah,
And so nice to get the feedback too, because maybe you can't. change the episodes that are out, but you can use the feedback to influence like what you do in the future.
Yeah, there was one thing that I had a it was like a podcast release party that I was there, and I was the second guest that he had on in this series, and it was at the Revival Hotel. It's called Pod Cookie,
Ooh.
and I remember sitting in on, no one knew that was me, right? Because I was doing this anonymity thing. It's a cartoon logo. And no one knew it was me. So I'm sitting there getting live, unsolicited feedback from people listening to the podcast. And I'm trying not to do a tell that, oh, like I'm trying not to laugh at my own jokes. and and when people kind of laughed at certain things that are in the episode, I'm like, okay, that landed. I'm like, take it like you said, taking these. And I was like, okay, that was good. More of that. And it was all like positive feedback, and it was very affirming. It was very cool just to get it without, hey, the guy is here. And when they did the reveal that, oh no, Rob is here sitting here with you guys. And they were like, oh, that was really good. That was fun. That was a good interview. So I don't, yeah, it's cool.
That's awesome to get the feedback anonymously. 'Cause, yeah.
Hey guys, Rob Lee here, chiming in the middle of the podcast, and we'll be right back to that in a moment. But I wanted to remind you that if you're following me on Instagram, and I hope you are, The Truth in This Art, make sure that you explore the links, the link in bio. I know that people always talk about follow me, link in bio, and all of that, but there's some valuable stuff in there, such as a survey for my newsletter. You've probably received the newsletter, and if not, definitely sign up for it. There's some interesting stuff there. We have profiles on certain guests. We have sort of curated episodes because we're around 800 right now, and it's a lot to go through, and all of them won't be available on every platform all the time. So being able to revisit and go back there to check out those episodes is important. So definitely check out the survey. Let us know what you think of the newsletter and what you would like to have included in there, and continue to make this podcast yours as well as mine. And yeah, back to the podcast, rapid fire. I got now 4. It was 3 when we started, but you gave yourself more work to do with these rapid fire questions. There was 3 initially. You made me add another one because you said something that I needed to, include. But, as I tell folks all the time, don't overthink this. Don't overthink this. These questions, there are 4 of them. So here's the first one. I'm again curious about, I like weird stuff, right? Like an Aquarius, we like the weird things.
Mhm.
What is the weirdest and most unexpected place that you found inspiration for a song?
Oh, the weirdest and most unexpected place I found inspiration for a song. Oh my gosh. What the heck?
Because people talk about like they get those shower thoughts all the time, and I was like la la la, and it just turns into a song somehow. Or I've mentioned this before. I take these walks whenever I go to a new city, and it didn't turn into a podcast per se, but it turned into a couple of questions that showed up in a podcast that day. And I saw a bumper sticker. I look at bumper stickers. That is a weird quirk that I have, but I will read a bumper sticker, and I always have a notepad with me. So I'm seeing this bumper sticker, and I'm thinking of like, I need another question for this interview. And the
Yeah.
bumper sticker said that art is the new magic. I wrote that down, worked it into a question. And I was like,
Mhm.
as I was exploring Austin, Texas, I read that art is the new magic. So, and I sounded like I was really smart. Like I really had a good insight. I was like, this came from a bumper sticker, bro. I think it was a taco place. I don't know what you say.
Okay. I noticed that so there's Baltimore Penn Station, the train station, but then
Oh, yeah.
there's also Penn Station in Moynihan Train Hall in New York, and they
Mhm.
have the same name. So I was like, I am currently writing a song about that. And okay, I'll take the train from Penn to Penn, where all your clothes meet all your friends, and it's like a romantic song about traveling back and forth between New York and Baltimore. And I don't know, I thought it had like a nice ring to it.
I like it. I like it. That's good. It's good. As a person that rides from pen to pen, like, look, let's just make it a hit. Let's do it. Here's the next one. If your music, because of the genre blending nature, I think this is apropos. If your music were a cocktail, maybe you can name a specific song that comes to mind. What would the ingredients be?
My music was a cocktail. What would the ingredients be? It's a great question.
It depends on how you answer that. That will determine what the next rapid fire one is going to be. Because the next one I have in mind is kind of funny, and I think it relates.
Ah, Oh my gosh. Okay. So I really like these milk punches. Have you ever had a milk punch? It's like a clarified cocktail.
Hmm.
I love clarified cocktails. Um, so normally with that, you put in all kinds of different ingredients, like a tea or something. So maybe I do like an Earl Grey tea because I like Earl Grey tea. It's a kind of what does Earl Grey mean? It's like cold, cloudy weather,
Yeah.
um, something cozy and like intimate in a way. And I feel like there are a lot of moments like that in my songs and in my music. But then I'd put like tequila in it because tequila's like fun and
I like that.
kind of a party a little bit, and maybe even a mezcal because the flavors are pretty intense and kind of smoky, but it's also like fun and tequila-y. Um, and then with the milk punch aspect of it, my music goes through such a filtration process, a refinement process.
Yeah.
If you know anything about milk punches, you add this milk and then it makes everything curdle, and then the curds strain everything until you're left with this like really smooth, velvety mouthfeel
Yeah.
of like a cocktail. And I feel like the refinement process is really a huge part of how things sound in the end. Just kind of melding all of those flavors together, and but it still has like a depth and a smoothness to it. I don't know.
No, 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 no. That was actually a little too good. No, no, no. I'm gonna retool my rapid fire question. That was too good. Yeah, it's like much like a milk punch. There's a refinement to it, much like the filtering that goes into it. It's like, what are you saying? And it works so well. I was like, oh, go off, let it cook.
Thank you.
So in that vein, you said this earlier, and I thought of the intro for this particular piece of IP. Who's your favorite Powerpuff Girl?
Ah, Buttercup.
That's that's really funny.
She's just like she's a sweetie and a softie at heart, but she's also a badass and a little chaotic. And I like that.
I feel like, and maybe I'll test this out in the lab of life, but I feel like back in the day of folks of a certain age, like, for boys it's like, which Ninja Turtle are you? And maybe for girls it's like, which like Powerpuff Girl are you? I think that might be the thing.
Yeah.
And depending on what the bridging thing is, because it's been around for so long, it's like, which Power Ranger are you? That's another thing that presents itself, but that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah. I used to love Power Rangers.
Likewise. And I mean, it's been on for like 30 years. So it just crosses like age groups. All right. So this is the last one I got for you. And this goes back to something more professional for you. What is like the ideal time or setting in which you write, which you're writing your music?
Hmm. Ideal timer setting is at a piano when I'm feeling a lot of things.
Nice.
And maybe even in the nighttime too. I think I write a lot of these songs at night when I'm just ruminating. Um, yeah. Yeah. Nighttime, piano, near a piano. And if I'm just in kind of a sensitive emotional state.
That's good. It's like being there. It's like the environment is set, the creative tools are within arm's reach. And then it's something about, especially this time of year or leading into this time of year where it gets dark earlier. You're able to start ruminating a bit more. I try to do most of my interviews later in the day because it's like I'm not at my freshest in that I'm just up, fully caffeinated. It's like I'm running, the battery is down, but it's at a good spot. It's at like a good 30%. It's a good 30% that I can, tap into sort of the creative thing, but it's not super taxing. And it just works, and having the home studio helps as well. So it's not like, let me run to the studio and do something. It's just like, no, I'm gonna do some stuff on the board and put together some audio. So I definitely feel that.
Oh yeah, it helps so much when you have everything you need right there in front of you.
100%. So that's kind of, you're off the hot seat. You survived. Not everyone survives. So there are some people that don't make it out.
Oh yeah,
No, not at all.
they just stay in the podcast forever. Like they
Yeah,
can't leave.
it's just a loop. It's like in the longest episode that's ever created. It's just so there are two things I want to do as we wrap up here. One, I want to thank you for coming on and making the time to, tell us about your debut EP and some of the insights that go into it. And also, I want to invite and encourage you to share with the listeners any of those final details, social media, website, plug that release date yet again. The floor is yours.
All right. Yeah. So the EP Quiet Loud, it comes out November 22nd. You can stay updated with everything about that on my Instagram, which is aka.eyas. Yeah. I haven't actually officially announced. Well, but by this time, when the podcast comes out, it'll have been announced. And then there's also going to be a release show for the EP on January 10th at Metro Gallery. And yeah. Quiet. Oh, let's go. Oh, yeah. I was going to say quiet loud is a word that I made up. But it's meant to express those like more quiet, solitary, lonesome moments where the feelings attached to them are felt very palpably. Like a deafening silence would be an example of something that's quite loud. And that's kind of what I was going for with the EP. But yeah, that'll be out November 22nd. So
the definition that you're making your own words. So right there, that's another thing. It almost has that, every now and again because I've been studying Japanese for now 400 days. I hit my anniversary today of 400 days with Atlanta. And sometimes you get those definitions of terms. I'm like, what? And that felt like one of those words. A state of quiet loud is when coined by, and I'm just waiting for it. So you got the sonic collage, you got, quiet loud, just wordsmithing. I love it.
Just making stuff up.
And there you have it, folks. I want to again thank Jenna Balderson, Eyas, for coming on to the podcast and talking about her debut EP out on November 22nd, and it is called Quiet Loud. And for Jenna, I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art, culture, and community in and around your neck of the woods. You've just got to look for it.